resorted to unfair means, which in spite of our checking, they have somehow managed to. So we will have a way of dealing with them. In spite of giving out questions, okay, during my class, that this may come as a potential question, this may come as a short note. I think most people don't note. They think that we just talk and give a lecture. Okay, those are important cues that you must write it down, keep a pad and pencil, but then you don't do it, and that reflects on your answers. You don't see previous year's question papers, which also shows how much interest you have in the subject, and you don't get an idea as to what kind of questions come as long questions and short notes. I reveal a secret to you. All the questions that I've given in this first internal were taken from previous year's papers. Otherwise, I generally don't do that. Okay? You don't draw margins when you write an answer. It shows how lackadaisical you are. When we were in school, our teachers told us to write our names, roll numbers, dates, and subject. Many of you have just written your name and somehow your roll number. That shows that you have no care when it comes to writing an exam. You don't take it seriously as much as we do. You also don't draw the margins on the sides, which you could have done much before the test. Okay? You could have kept the papers ready with the margins drawn with your name written, roll number, because the instructions were passed to you through your CR 3 days in advance. SPM department works like that, but you don't take advantage of our, telling you in advance. The attitude also showed in some people sitting on the bed, some people not sitting on a proper desk, which shows that you didn't stage manage it properly. When you are online, you are supposed to wear a proper dress. You are supposed to have a proper background. You are supposed to have a studious background, I feel. And not that you're lying on your bed or sitting on any table with something on the side or something behind you. Okay, that is not very, very nice to see for a student of 7th semester. Clear? Some of you read books other than Park, like Falcon or something. Now that is up to you. But let me tell you, Park is the Bible. We must read the Bible, like we read Grey's Anatomy or Chaurasia, or we read Robinson Path. We have to read Park, and it is not difficult to understand. But most of you read they want to take a shortcut by going through some book like Falcon or something, and it gives you a totally wonky idea, and you sometimes end up not writing the answers properly. Many of you have written with faded pens. The pens should be bright. They should be dark blue or black, perhaps. Because when you take a scan or take a photograph and upload it, the examiner has to read it. This is true for your final exam also, because even if we have a proper exam like we used to have, your papers will be scanned by the university and uploaded for us to read. Sometimes if you write with a faded pen, we cannot read it. And there are a couple of people, or maybe more, who have written with some pens, and the photograph that they have taken later on hasn't come properly. You don't read the instructions before you go online. You don't have your software ready to convert it into PDF. People message in between that I can't convert, I can only make it JPEG. So all this is somehow, a little jarring, because we give you the instructions much before. These are a few points which I noted from correcting your papers. Some of you have written very well. Some of you are just about average, which is okay. There's no problem. There is some time before you can revise. But my advice is read Park, make a note when your teacher teaches you and when he tells you what is important and what is not, and see previous year's question papers to have an idea as to what kind of questions come and what came last time, so that it may not come this time. Am I with the class? Have you understood me?
Yes, sir.
I want a yes or no.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So let's proceed with the class. We have an ethical meeting also. The topic is health planning and management. Now, you may not like it, but many of you, even if you are doctors, you will have to plan and manage things in the hospital, in the nursing homes, in the primary health center, everywhere. We all do planning in our lives. So this is a word which is somehow very, very, ingrained in your lives. Now, there is something called as health planning, the orderly process of defining community health problems, identifying unmet needs and surveying the resources that can solve these problems or meet these needs, establishing priority goals that are realistic and feasible, and projecting administrative action to accomplish the program or the final goal. So therefore, we need planning. Whatever you've done in your life, whatever your parents have done for you, whatever they have done for themselves, they have had a plan. Sometimes we change plans, that's okay, but we have a plan. So you may be asked in the Viva, define health planning. What is health planning? What do you understand? So basically it is planning which is pertaining to health. And what is the problem in health? The public health problems, the unmet needs like family planning, the lack of resources, the lack of manpower, the lack of budget, and how the health administrators accomplish the program. So this is what is health planning. Just a rough idea. Health needs and demands, I already told you. We require a lot of things for health. The corona epidemic has thrown open a Pandora's box, saying that we lack ventilators, we lack oxygen cylinders, we lack expertise, we lack ICUs. So we have some needs and demands, and we should be always ready with them. Medical care, nutrition, safe water supply, immunization, these are the demands of the community. Resources, we all know manpower, money, skill, times, all these are resources. You can't do a program without your friend's help, without some money. So you require resources. Objectives, targets, goals. These are words used to describe end results of planning. Objective is precise, either achieved or not, a planned end point. These are basically steps which you take to reach the end point, which is the aim of your program. Target is a discrete activity. Example, number of blood films you have taken, number of sterilizations that you have done. Okay, so it's a target. Your boss has given you a target to complete 300 cases by month end. So that's a target. That's not an objective. And what's a goal? Goal is what you follow in the objectives and reach. The ultimate desired state is the goal. So these are three different English words: objective, target, and goal. And all of them mean different things and not the same thing that many of you think them to be. Objective are the steps which you take to reach the goal. Targets are discrete activities that you set for yourself or the authorities set for you to solve or get involved in a problem. Plan. Well, in 2 words, a plan is a blueprint. That's why the background is blue. It has 5 major elements. And what are they? Objectives, policies, the program per se, the schedule, and the budget. Anyway, you have to remember the definition of plan, which is coming up. It's a blueprint. For all you know, it's a blueprint. And there are various elements in a plan. Now, before you plan, there is something called as pre-planning. The government has shown interest in a topic. It has some political will. There is a legislation, like, for example, the MTP Act of 71. It has to be formulated into an act. The organization for planning has to be there. Who will work for it? How much of money will be allocated and all that? Of course, they form a part of the plan per se. But then, even before the plan is put into place or in writing, we require a couple of things to be in order, including administrative capacity. You can't implement a big program with less people. Okay, so you require administrative support. All this is pre-planning, what we call as reconnaissance or recce. You want to go for a picnic, you send out 2 friends who go to the waterfall and see if the place is conducive for 20 people to go, for girls to go. Do you have a place to cook? Do you have a small shelter there in case it rains? Can you shelter yourselves there? So that is pre-planning. You do an early reconnaissance, and after that you sit down with your friends, like this bunch has they are sitting here and you plan, okay, we will have chicken, we will have biryani, we will have this, that, and how much of money, how will we go, the transport and everything. So there is something called as pre-planning. And what is planning? Planning is a broad foundation on which much of health management is based. I'm using the word health because we are talking health. Process of analyzing a system, defining a problem is planning. Formulating goals and objectives to alleviate or ameliorate the identified unmet needs is planning. Initiating action for implementation is planning. And finally, monitoring and evaluating is also planning. So planning is not just, you plan and you say, okay, we have planned. No, you have to implement it. You have to reach your goals and objectives through your objectives. You have to initiate action. And finally, you have to sit down after the exam, after the planning, after the event is over and say, well, did we do okay? Can we evaluate our, planning? Did we have some faults? Can we note it down somewhere so that next year when we do it, we don't repeat them? And while the plan is being implemented, you monitor it. All these things may appear a little dull and monotonous, but remember some words and use them in your answers for which you will score good marks. Okay, so I talked about a planning cycle. This is a planning cycle. Well, this is not given in the book, but overall, this is simple, and you know that you have done this n number of times in your life. What new problems? Where are we now? Where do you want to go? How will you get there? How will we know that we have arrived? Monitoring, evaluations. So these are the things that are involved in a cycle of planning. Ladies and gentlemen, planning cycle is a long question in the exam, or it may come as a short note. It may come as part of the long question. Define health planning. What do you understand by planning cycle? Okay? And you have to draw a diagram which is given in your book and write in short. Okay? Now, these are the various steps in planning, and there are 8. Analysis, establishment of objectives and goals, all these things I have just repeated. Assessment of resources, fixing priorities, write-up of a plan, programming and implementation. Implementation, the spelling is wrong. Monitoring and evaluation. Okay? Please remember these 8 points, write them in the exam, and describe after writing the headings one line. And also, something which is important will be shown in the form of a flow chart or algorithm which is coming up. Analysis of health situation involves collection, assessment, and interpretation of information. Okay? This is the analysis, the population, age, the demographic structure, the epidemiological and geographical distribution of different diseases in an area. You want to do a study in a village near our college, you have to know the various situations, the health situations in the village. So analysis of health situation, the facilities available, the technical manpower, the training facilities available, the attitudes and belief of the population. Generally, you should not go against the beliefs and the attitudes of the people there. You have to respect that. So there is something called as analysis of the situation. You can just describe in your own words. I have made it into 2 slides. You need not write so much. You can always write your own interpretation, but the heading should be there. Establishment of objectives and goals. You have to establish goals and you have to write the steps how you will reach them. I will organize a picnic in so and so place. How will we reach there? In the morning, we will assemble at 10 o'clock somewhere. We will hire 2 buses, which will already be given some advance. They will come to a spot, pick us up. They will take us to the picnic, and they will wait there. And once we finish, they will come back. So you have established your goals and objectives. This is a short-term goal. And what's a long-term goal? Every 26th of January, we friends will have a picnic on Republic Day because we have a holiday. So every year, we must have a planning, and all of us, whether we are in some other city or whether we are in Hyderabad or whether we are in some other state, we should all come together in one place and organize a picnic. So that's a long-term thing, right? So therefore, you have short-term and long-term goals. Remember that in planning. This is the number 2 step after analyzing. The third step is very important. You have to assess your resources. We paid 300 rupees per head last year. Shall we pay 400 this year? Because the prices have gone up. Okay. We took a big transport last year, but we were 20 people. Can we take a smaller transport this year and save on the transport? So assessment of resources, fixing priorities. In order of importance, you must fix priorities. You must have priorities in your life. I will first complete MBBS and then I will do my MD and then I will go for my DM. You can't say that I'll do MBBS, after that I will do DM and then I'll go for MD. You have to set your priorities. There's a sequence. We have to cross our 12th and then only get into medicine. So my priority in class 11 was to score well, but my priority in class 12 was also to read for the NEET or for the MSET or whatever. Therefore, you got to fix your priorities. You should also have some alternate plans, which are very, very important when you fix your priorities. Why? Because tomorrow you require plan B. Plan A fails. I want to reach the station by auto rickshaw. But if the auto rickshaws are not plying and there's a strike, you should have a plan B. You should have told one of your friends from before, boss, in case the auto rickshaws don't come, I'll give you a call. Just drop me in your mobile in the Secunderabad railway station. So alternate plans. Now, what is most important, and I just mentioned before I started the lecture, is you must write up. You must, whenever you plan any event in the college, Aeonia, Neonia, whatever Nia, whenever you plan any event in your life, whenever you plan a picnic, I have been given an example of picnic, you have to have a write-up. Please take a paper and pencil and write. It is a habit which our grandfathers and fathers had. This is a habit which we have lost. Please write, even if your handwriting is not readable, but write up a formulated plan. It should be complete in all respects, like resources, what kind of results you expect. Each stage should be defined. Who will pay how much? Who is responsible for transport? Who is responsible for food? Who is responsible for marketing? Who is responsible for telling everybody? Who is responsible for whatever? So each stage has to be defined. Responsibilities have to be given. There should be a central planning authority who should be allocating the duties. It is decentralizing, but there should be a head, like you have a CR in the class, like you have a mentor when you went first year or whatever. So you had a head. Therefore, write-up is very, very important. Programming and implementation, of course, a plan has to be implemented. In case it is not implemented, it is not a plan. So this is done after the plan has been selected and approved. All friends agreed, yes, we must have a picnic in this place and not in the other place which so-and-so was suggesting. That first place is much better. It is safer. It is easily approachable. So therefore, you select whatever were the various options and you execute the plan. Plan execution depends on effective organization, sufficient delegation of authority. I, as a professor, can't do everything in the department. I require my friends, my colleagues, other faculty members, other class 4 employees to do the work, certain work. So therefore, I have to delegate duties. It's a collective kind of effort. We have to fix responsibility of different workers to achieve predetermined objectives. Now, that is what is programming and implementation. Implementation includes definition of roles, individual roles and tasks, selection, training. I'm supposed to send you out for a survey, but I must train you. Training, motivation, supervision of manpower. I have to motivate you. Some of you are not motivated enough. It reflects on your handwriting or the way you write the exam. Some of you are motivated. They take the exam very seriously. They have answered each and every question to their best. Organization and communication. Okay, you have to communicate, and efficiency of individual institutions. See, certain institutions, they are well known because they have a brand name. They are efficient. They are well-known centers of healthcare. So therefore, the efficiency of individual institutions is very much important in implementation of a plan. Monitoring. Monitoring may be asked to you in the Viva. Yes, please tell me, what is monitoring? What do you understand by monitoring? We have taught you monitoring in the chapter on health. It is a day-to-day follow-up of implemented activities. Your mentor keeps meeting you every week and monitors what all things you have carried out in the previous week. So he or she keeps checking. So it is continually observing a core set of indicators through a checklist that he has. Correct? It is something like I am tracking you, checking supplies against inventories. I have demanded 20 bottles of sanitizer. How many have come? Why have 15 come? Where are the rest 5? Why didn't they give it? So you have to monitor and you have to keep a record and keep examining and following the record and noting it down. Correct? And last and not the least, you have to evaluate yourself. We taught you various lessons in SPM and then we had an evaluation. We had the first internal exam, which we evaluate you. Without evaluation, life is not good. Measures the degree to which objectives and targets are fulfilled. Otherwise, each of one thinks that he or she is a king or a queen. Okay? The final outcome, the output and the cost effectiveness is measured. The measurement of observed achievements, comparison with previously stated norms, intended results. Did we fail? Did we achieve 100% of the results? Or was it 75%? Is 60% satisfactory? Why did we score only 40? We failed in the rest 60. Why? And based on these evaluation, or based on these points of evaluation, you make certain decisions so that you have a better plan. Right? So I'll repeat. First of all, you analyze, then you have your objectives and goals, right? Then you have your objectives and goals, then you assess your resources, then you have your priorities fixed. Finally, you write. Whereas in the investigation of an epidemic, we wrote in the end, after we did the action, if you remember, there were 10 points. It was not asked in the exam, but it's a potential question. Could be in your second, internal. And then you finally implement, monitor, and evaluate. So these are the various points in planning cycle, and this is the diagram given in your book. It is slightly confusing, right? We have a small circle on top where you tabulate, analyze, interpret the health, data after you gather the data on a certain health problem. Whereas if you have a health problem, you assign priorities among the problem. There are 10 public health problems, but today Corona is the number 1. Therefore, you assign priority number 1 to Corona. Formulate individual priority problems, define the program, assign priorities, design alternative program, that is plan Bs, select the best program out of the alternates and the main program, combine and develop a plan, implement the plan, train the personnel who implement the plan, you must train them, and initiate the program, collect the data, and evaluate. So this is the diagram given in your book. Some of you can reproduce the diagram exactly in toto in the exam. They get good marks. But even if you cannot, just write the 8 steps that we just discussed, and you can make your own diagram of the planning cycle. Rest assured, you will get a 7, 7.5 on 10, in case it's a 10-mark long question. In case you can draw this diagram, probably you will score 8.5. So what I'm saying is, planning cycle is an oft repeated question in the exam. We have discussed what is a plan, we have discussed what is pre-planning, we have discussed what's an objective, a target, and a goal. We have also talked about the 8 steps of a plan per se. And now we have given you the diagram, which is there in your book, part book. Perhaps it is not there in Falcon, for Falcon readers. Now, the topic is health planning and management. So we have talked about planning, we come to management. You have got friends who have done BBA and MBA. We say they are management grads, right? We say they are management graduates. They have done MBA, or they have done a PG diploma in business management. We talk about IIMs and ISB, which are reputed institutions in India for management. Similarly, we have got health management. Many of you may do a degree in hospital administration and do management full-time. But in case you are a clinician, in case you are a teacher like me, you will still have to do management. We all manage things in our lives, and management and planning are different things. We have talked about planning, we will switch over to management. The purposeful and effective use of resources, manpower, material, and finances for fulfilling a predetermined objective. Sounds similar, but then it's different. The purposeful and effective use of resources like manpower, material, and finances, you can write three M's: manpower, material, money. Finances can be replaced by money, M, and M, the three main resources for fulfilling a predetermined objective. Management consists of four basic activities, almost the same, like which you read in planning. And now you will appreciate that planning is the first step, the first basic activity in management. Next comes organizing, communicating, and monitoring. You will now ask me that monitoring is there within planning. That's fine. But management has got a little broader concept, which we will see just now. Management methods and techniques are based on behavioral sciences or quantitative methods. There are two types of management techniques, right? You will ask your friends who are doing MBA, they will tell you the same thing. Only thing is that we will relate our management knowledge to health. Management methods based on behavioral sciences, there are 5. The first one is organizational design. Don't have too many queries in your head. These are topics which are actually not related to us, and we understand a little less than a proper management grad. But at the same time, we got to know certain terminologies. And many of the terminologies, as we go along, will appear familiar to you. The poor organization results in waste of resources. It is a theory of management that organization must be suited to current situation and needs to be regularly serviced. So the first method based on behavioral sciences, the first management method is organizational design. Organizational health services should be designed so as to meet the needs and demands of people. It should be reviewed. It can't be that whatever I'm doing today, the same thing applies tomorrow. Tomorrow, the whole scenario changes. Who knew COVID will come? So your whole organizational design has changed. We have switched over from offline teaching or classroom teaching to something called as online or flip teaching, right? This is something which we have done. We have changed the organizational design. Efficient delivery of health services depends on existence of an effective organization. The second type of management technique based on behavioral sciences is personnel management. This is skillful use of human resources. Boys and girls, please note the spelling of personnel. It is not personnel. It is personnel, which means manpower. The skillful use of human resources. And how do you do proper method of selection, training, and motivation? You have read in occupational health about square peg in a round hole. Okay? We have to fit the person to the job. Therefore, you have to select properly. Your management skills as a medical officer will come into play when you select some subordinate for training and you motivate him enough to work with you. You have to have proper skills of division of responsibility. You have to distribute roles and eliminate the square pegs in round holes. You recruit me for a certain job, but after some days you find that I am not suited for that job, but I can do something else better. If you can, shift me to the other department so that I work there with enough motivation and I am doing a good job. And you must offer incentives for better work. Okay? So this is what is personal management. If you recall, many of your friends who have done business management will be specializing either in finance, marketing, sales, or perhaps in HR. That is human resources. Human resources people do personnel management. Okay? So the second method is personnel management. You have to give the promotions. You have to have effective designs for help teams. Your friends who are in the IT sector, they will often talk of a team. In our medical college, we don't talk of teams that much, except for perhaps the team of surgeons or whatever who are operating on a patient. But when you go to the corporate sector, you will find a person telling, me and my team are doing this today. So they have a proper team. And in case of personal management, teams are required. Communication. I keep telling people, you must communicate. If you don't communicate well with your parents, with your friends, and with your subordinates and seniors, with your teachers, perhaps it gives rise to a lot of misunderstandings. Therefore, there are roadblocks. There should be proper doctor-patient communication, doctor-nurse communication, okay? Between senior officials and juniors, between the administration and the health ministry or whatever. So there should be various communication channels, and this is one method of management by behavioral sciences, okay? Information systems, a word with which you are familiar. We have got a lot of information systems nowadays. We have various functions which collect, classify, transmit, store, retrieve, transform, display data. All these things are there. Computers have a big role, and therefore people who are doing computer science and later on management, perhaps they will tell you, I work with a IT company where I'm looking after information systems. Okay, that is the fourth method of management technique by behavioral sciences. And the last is management by objectives. This comes as a short note. I don't know why it's a favorite with the examiners, but MBO can come as a short note sometime, and there are just 2 lines in your book. You just got to reproduce them. Objectives are set forth for different units and subunits, each of which prepares its own plan of action, usually on a short-term basis. See, I just talked about a health team. In the IT sector, the people are divided into teams and they work differently. Each team has a different plan. Each team has got subunits, sub-teams, which prepares its own plans. So basically, it is decentralizing your duty. It helps in achieving results more effectively and smoothly. I can't be simpler. I don't know why, but this is an exam question. Now, if there were 5 methods of management by behavioral sciences, there are 10 methods by quantitative methods. And some of them you may have heard in your day-to-day, correspondence or whatever. Cost benefit, cost effective, cost accounting, input output. These are words that you have heard. So there is nothing much, to know on this except for a few new things which I'll be telling you. So there are 10 quantitative methods of management. Management per se doesn't come as a question, but there are short notes which are picked up, like MBO, management by objectives. Network analysis is a short note. In that, there are 2 methods. Both can come as individual short notes, PERT or CPM. I'll tell you what is PERT and I'll tell you what is CPM. PPBS or planning, programming, budgeting has come rarely, but may come because it sounds little funny, PPBS, okay, or something of that sort. So we will not waste time and go to the first one, which is cost benefit. The economic benefits of any program are compared with cost of that program. Today, you want to do a kind of research in the college. You require the help of the college because you need to spend some money or you need to have some lab chemicals or whatever. Therefore, the college has to spend some money. The college will see the cost benefits. Will the study which you do be effective in implementing certain changes? Will the study that you do enhance the reputation of the college or something? So cost benefit. You go to a place and you invest some money. Later on, you get some returns. You get 4%, 10% returns. Do you think that is beneficial to you? So cost benefit. Okay, very simple. Now, the drawback of this system is benefits in the health field as a result of a particular program can't always be expressed as monetary terms. Okay, I show some kind behavior to you. You feel very grateful. That can't be measured in terms of money. Okay, so many things in the health field can't be expressed in monetary terms. Cost effective. Now, almost similar, but the benefit is expressed not in monetary terms, but in terms of results achieved. I saved a number of lives. I rushed to the disaster spot. I evacuated people who were still alive, and out in the hospital, 10 people who arrived, 9 people were saved. So cost effective, right? So cost effective is slightly different, but almost similar to cost benefit. Cost accounting. Some of your friends may do cost accounting. They must be doing chartered accountancy and cost accountancy. Provides basic data on cost structure of any program. So cost accounting, I don't know much about it, but it also involves costs, and the main aim of cost accounting is to control the costs, plan and allocate to people the correct financial resources, and also think of some kind of reimbursement. You go to the dean for some help for Aeonia. He allocates 50,000 but tells you that try to spend the money in a very, very, you can say, thrifty way. Be careful. Don't overspend. If you can save some money, that will be good, he tells you. So therefore, cost control, allocating the financial resources, and thinking of some kind of reimbursement. Will somebody sponsor the program, and can we get back out of 50,000, can we get back 25,000 in the college kitty? Something of that sort. So cost accounting. Input output is very easy. I spend 100 rupees. How much is the output? Can I get back 200? It is something like investing. All health service activities that consume resources are inputs, and the useful outcomes are lives saved, cases treated, or whatever you learned in the medical school or whatever. So this is what is input output. Now cost effective, cost benefit, input output, cost accounting, they are easy to understand, and they are rarely asked in the exam. Maybe you may be asked to list out, but that is rarely asked. There is a model method of managing the management technique. Now, what is this? This helps to understand how the factors in a situation affect one another. Some of you drew a wonderful diagram in the randomized control trial question. There was a flow chart, and in the flow chart, there were certain arrows which were deviating on to the right side, which shows no, yes, or whatever. They were eliminated from the study. So therefore, you have various interactions even when the algorithm is in progress. How to understand this model method of management helps you to understand how the various factors interact and affect one another. Systems analysis is the sixth method of management technique by quantitative methods, helps decision maker to choose an appropriate course of action, helps in finding the most all of them are almost similar. It helps in finding the most cost-effective alternative, he says. So therefore, if you have understood cost effectiveness, you will understand what is systems analysis, except that the word is a slightly management jargon. You need not go into depth. You just have to know this name to reproduce in the exam in case you are asked, name some methods of management techniques. Okay? Now, we come to the all-important network analysis. This is an exam question. Network is a graphic plan of all events and activities to be completed in an order to reach an end objective. Greater discipline is required when you do network analysis. It's a graphic plan. I just talked about a flow chart. So if you have understood what's a flow chart, you will understand what's network analysis. And there are two types, PERT and CPM. PERT is program evaluation and review technique. There's nothing great in these words. You have to evaluate the program. Evaluation is a word which we are using 10th time today. And you have to review your technique, right? That is what is PERT. And CPM is critical path method. Now, network analysis may come as a short note, and even sometimes PERT or CPM come as individual short notes. You cannot have a better short note than this, because you just require to draw one diagram and write one line to get a 3.5 out of 4. That is the maximum we give, or rather I give for a short note. It is not mathematics, so you don't deserve a 4 on 4. Now, what is PERT? Program Evaluation and Review Technique. A management technique which makes possible more detailed planning and more comprehensive supervision. It is basically the construction of an arrow diagram. That's all. It helps us to find the time by which each activity must be completed, to identify which activities are critical. See, when you make a plan, when you make a diagram, certain activities are more critical. I'll show you a diagram which is taken from your book again, and if you can draw that diagram and understand it, your job is done. That will help you understand what is PERT and what is CPM. It allows communication between various levels of management. Again, something like systems, systems analysis, where we found that people, they can, not systems, model how the factors interact, how one of the factors interact and how they affect. So that is what is somehow ingrained in PERT also. And what is CPM? It's the critical path method. Critical, important. The longest part of the network, is called the critical path. In an arrow diagram, you have the longest path. That is the most important critical or the critical path. If any activity along this path is delayed, the entire project is delayed. Are you getting me now? So CPM is a part of, you can say, network analysis of PERT, which is the most important part. Now, this diagram will make it clear. It shows you a plan where you have staff required and you have staff to be trained. You take 4 months to recruit them and you take 2 months to train them. And in 1 month, you allocate them duties to various parts of this. Suppose you are running a plant or a factory. And while you are doing this, in 2 months, you are also ordering equipment. Some equipment is coming from abroad. Some equipment is coming from Delhi. And you are installing them to make your factory. It takes about 10 months for the equipment to be installed. In between, you have got your staff trained and you have also put them in various places of the installation. And finally, after a month of installation, you start providing service. I'm talking about a factory. Same thing goes true for health, right? So therefore, this is the CPM, the longest path. I hope you can see the mouse or the arrow that I am moving. That is the CPM or the critical path method, which is the longest path in the network. And the whole thing, the arrow diagram, can be called as PERT. So therefore, that is what, in a sense, network analysis. We come down to planning, programming, budgeting system. Now, planning, programming, budgeting. 3 things. If you understand the 3 things, you can write about PPBS. A system to help decision makers to allocate available resources so that they are used in the most effective way. We come down to the same thing. All the names are different, but they mean almost the same thing. Cost effective, decision making. These are words that we have used in the little that we have talked about management, health management. There is no changes in the existing organization, but grouping of activities into programs related to the objective is done in planning, programming, and budgeting. There is another approach called a zero budget approach. That is the approach which most employers like. You spend your money, and when you come back, you submit a bill and we will pass the budget. Okay? The money is spent by the individual or the team. Whereas in certain organizations, you draw an advance and you do the work, and after some time, you take the rest of the money. No contractor will work for you unless you give him an advance. You get hold of a carpenter to work in your house. He will say, give me 2,000 rupees, I'll buy the material, I'll come on so-and-so date. After the work, give me 4,000. Total cost of the work is 6,000, right? But in case the carpenter is good, he knows you, he will do all the work, and at the end of the work, he will submit you a bill of 6,000, and you can say, well, this was not required, why did you buy it? This was not required, okay, or whatever, and you can pass the bill and give him the money. So this is zero budget approach. All budget starts with zero. No one gets the budget that he can justify, and no one gets the budget that he can't justify on a year-to-year basis. Therefore, you have to justify your expenditure. The carpenter has to tell you why he spent 6,000. Otherwise, you will find some extra expenditure. He will say transportation 500. He has got activities of one or more individuals carried out at predetermined or random intervals. Almost something like a personal management. You observe and you record the activities of different individuals, what they are doing. You give them some marks, or perhaps whatever way you want to judge them, and you make them more effective, or you shift them to some other department. Basically, it is called as fitting the right person to the right job. Again, we come down to occupational health. The major parameters are types of activities performed and the time required for the duties. So types and time. And finally, the last method of management is called as decision making. The basic discipline in management is decision making. Somebody has to make a decision, and it is not necessarily always at the top level. Okay, we all look up to the dean, the principal, or somebody to take a decision. But sometimes certain decisions are taken by you people in the class. Okay, you want to do this, you want to do that, you want to approach this problem like this, you want to solve the problem like this. So the 10th method of management is decision making. Now, in the next class, we will deal in detail with something called as health planning in India. It is a bit historical. As far as the health planning goes, we will discuss the various committees that were formed during, or you can say just before independence and after independence. Over the years, the government of India has formed various health committees, and these health committees have planned certain things for us, namely the primary health care, the primary health centers, the various other family planning programs, and the vector-borne disease control program. All these have been planned by people. They just don't come overnight, or they are not ready-made. Depending on the state, depending on the country, depending on the technical expertise, people plan. So in the next class, we will finish with health planning in India. What you have learned today is called as planning cycle and the management techniques. Now, there are various methods of planning, the various steps in planning, and we showed you that by a diagram which is like this. And there were 8 steps basically, just to revise. And in management, we have got various management techniques which are based on behavioral sciences, or they are based on quantitative methods. The behavioral sciences, there are 5. That is organizational design, personal management, communication, information systems, and management by objectives. Among these, management by objectives may come as an exam question sometime, whereas quantitative methods are just a double, that is about 10 given in your book. Cost benefit, cost effective, cost accounting, input output, model method, systems analysis, network analysis including PERT and CPM, PPBS, work sampling, and decision making. These words are slightly confusing. They may appear a little foreign to you right now, some of them, but revise them. As I tell you, the moment the lesson is finished, see the book and mark them, even if you don't have the time to go through them. I'm sure you have the time. Some people wanted relaxation after the exam. I wonder why. You people are sitting in the house in the comforts. You are attending 2-3 classes per day, and the rest of the day is free for you. Here you have to travel. You have to attend clinical postings. You have to do so many programs. So please don't be lackadaisical. Please read, use this time. As I tell you every time, these are very, very difficult times and very unpredictable. You never know when the exam is suddenly on your head, and you may not get a month's time even to prepare. So mark these things in the book. Even if you have not done the first internal well, whatever questions were asked, go back and look them up in the book. Where did you make a mistake? Concepts of disease causation, I have been shouting my voice hoarse, yet people have written iceberg phenomenon. I don't know why. That's a different phenomena altogether. Okay? There are theories of disease causation which you should have written. And these were very, very simple questions. They are not going to be that simple in the next internal and in your finals. You are a regular batch. You are supposed to be knowing and doing well. Take this as a stepping stone and keep revising. Make the subject interesting for you. Read the standard book, and I wish you well. Thank you. Sorry for the technical glitch in between. All the best.